This week was a big one for video games. Sony made headlines at the Paris Games Week show early on with a special presentation announcing new titles and highlighting upcoming ones. For new titles, Ghost of Tsushima is a sweet-looking game that sets you in the role of a Ronin samurai out for revenge. No actual gameplay was shown, but it did have a really cool cinematic at least. Concrete Genie is a pretty game with some motion control paintbrush action. It looks like you paint monsters to solve puzzles and escape from neighborhood bullies. There's probably more to it than that, but that is the trailer. Another motion control game, Erica, has you haunting a young woman, I think, but, in a good way, as a friendly ghost, helping her make good life choices. And Onrush is a new arcade-style racing game that looks like it has either life-size RC cars or regular-size RC cars driven by tiny people. On the VR side of things, Blood and Truth looks to be breaking ground by putting you in the middle of an action movie in ways we haven't seen before. And for games we already knew about, Far Cry 5 showed off some of their thrilling online co-op antics. Destiny 2's first expansion, Curse of Osiris, will have you heading out to Mercury to track down a rogue guardian. Monster Hunter World puts you in a world full of monsters that you have to hunt, and on the PS4 you can get some Horizon Zero Dawn crossover action. Speaking of which, it looks like things are going to get chilly for Alloy in the Frozen Wilds DLC due out this week. And Insomniac's Spider-Man game continues to impress. It looks amazing, spectacular, even sensational. Don't know how it plays really, but it sure is fun to watch. With another look at Detroit Become Human, we got to see a story about a not Jennifer Lawrence robot dealing with an abusive owner. God of War showed off some more axe-murdering gameplay, so that's neat. And the Shadow of Colossus remake looks like Shadow of Colossus, which I suppose is what they're going for. There's also Call of Duty World War II and Star Wars Battlefront 2, both of which are already out, but they showcased them anyway. And finally, the show closed out with the extremely violent first look at The Last of Us Part 2, and holy crap, do not watch that if you're even a little squeamish. But the Sony conference is far from the only gaming news this week. That's right, it's time for Blizzcon, which means a whole score of announcements for your favorite Blizzard games. For Overwatch, that means a new character is on the way. Moira is a villainous support that can alternate between a short-range heal or a life leech ability. Likewise, she can fire a bouncing orb of either healing or damage, and her ultimate is a mix of both, dealing damage to enemies and healing allies at the same time. And alongside this new character is a new hybrid map, Blizzard World, a map that has you escorting the payload through a theme park styled after Blizzard's other games. Some characters will even get the chance to dress up like their favorite Blizzard heroes with new basic skins themed around WoW, Starcraft, and Diablo to get some crossover action going. It's gonna start looking like Heroes in the Storm in there before long. Speaking of which, a dragon-themed pair of characters is coming to HOTS. Overwatch's Hanzo joins the battle alongside World of Warcraft's Red Dragon aspect Alexstrasza. Hanzo is doubtlessly an assassin, while Alexstrasza is a support character with healing fire breath. And on the subject of Warcraft, the war continues with the newest WoW expansion, Battle for Azeroth. It seems that without demonic dreadlords or evil dragons to unite them, the Alliance and Horde are back at it again. The new expansion will center around new features like RTS-themed war zones, procedurally generated island expeditions, and PvP overhauls to really remind the two factions why they hate each other. And if this newfangled level 120 content is too much for you, good news! Blizzard is turning back the clock, announcing World of Warcraft Classic. It turns out that their recent shutdown of fan-run vanilla servers wasn't just for copyright purposes. Hot on the heels of the remastered Starcraft, now it looks like WoW is getting the nostalgia treatment. But of course, no matter how much the Alliance and Horde hate each other, they'll always be able to sit down for a game of Hearthstone, which announced a new expansion, Kobalds and Catacombs. The expansion sports 135 new cards, a new game mode, and a new keyword, Recruit, which lets you summon random minions cards from your deck. And finally, jumping over to Blizzard's other craft, over in the Caprulu sector, Starcraft 2 is going free to play. While the arcade mode has been free for some time now, all three story campaigns, the competitive multiplayer, and the co-op missions will be open to anybody, though expect there to be a few microtransactions to be peppered in down the line. Heading over to movies, coming out this week, we have an adaptation of the classic Agatha Christie novel, Murder on the Orient Express. It's not an original story by any means, but a cast this stacked is worth watching no matter what they're doing. And for another holiday movie, last week it was Bad Moms, but this week, Daddy's Home 2. Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg not only have to deal with each other, but Mel Gibson and John Lithgow as well, so if you like the original, this is more of that. Over in video games, things are pretty scarce this week. By Any Means Necessary is not an RPG Maker game, it just looks like one. Meanwhile, Nioh Complete Edition brings the brutal action game to PC with the full game and the 3 expansion chapters in one package. Next up, probably the biggest release of this week, Sonic is back for Sonic Forces. Create the original character you've always dreamed of and hope that this game lives up to the standards set by Sonic Mania earlier this year. And for tower defense this week, there's Sector 177, which really doesn't look that great at all, but hey, you know me, I'm a sucker for tower defense. Over on the Xbox One, if you're bummed about not having Mario Odyssey, don't fret. There's Super Lucky's Tale, bringing back the cartoonish mascot platformer genre. Meanwhile, the Nintendo Switch is getting Doom. Granted, it's Doom running at 30 frames per second, but hey, still Doom. And finally, Mario Party The Top 100 brings 100 of the best minigames in the series together into a single compilation game. Finishing up with this week's CGBros video, The Novice is a cute little short by Courtney Scriven and Alejandra Alvarez about a little tiger monk learning patience from a tiger dragon. And this week's awesome video couldn't be anything other than the newest Overwatch short, Honor and Glory, showing everybody the right and the wrong way to play Reinhardt.
I love the wind in my hair.
Get back and protect your team!
Ah, they're just slowing me down. Ah! Besides, they're fine!
That's everything for this week, so will free Starcraft get you to try it out? Does the new WoW expansion make you want to jump in or jump back in? Let me know in the comments. As always, I appreciate likes, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and of course, have a great week!